Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Life at the Chocolate Factory. This episode is called The Day Everything Changed, and it's quite a dramatic episode. So up until now, I have been telling you about my journey in a chronological order, and we ended things at the fall of 2021 in the previous episode. And in this episode, I'm going to continue to tell you my story up until today. And then after that, I'm thinking that we can deep dive into certain topics and focus on one topic per episode, or, a few topics per episode. But we ended things at the fall of 2021 and me opening the chocolate factory. And those were exciting times, but the pressure also increased after I opened the factory, because now I had an entire factory. I had to start employing people. I hired my first employee, and I had all these costs that were building up. And the business was growing steadily, but it wasn't growing quickly enough. So we weren't really covering all of these costs. And that was really scary. So the pressure was building up, but everything was really moving in the right direction, except me, because I felt very stagnant. I felt like I was at a very stagnant point in my life, and I felt blocked. And I had been in that phase of my life for quite some time, but only now was I feeling like something was under the surface. It was bubbling up and it needed to come out, but I didn't know what it was, and I wasn't ready to do anything about it. But I did feel blocked, and I felt like something needed to happen in my life. I just didn't know what it was. And during this time, I started feeling really disconnected from everything that was going on around me. I had been in a relationship for 6 years, and I decided to leave that relationship. And I don't know where it came from, but I just knew I had to do it. Like, that was a pivotal time in my journey, and so much was happening. And it didn't really make sense, because if you look at where I had no income. The business wasn't making enough money for me to have an income. I was still living with my mom. I had bought an apartment with my ex-boyfriend, and we were meant to move into it, but I decided to give all of that up. And in my head, it was not making any sense, but I just knew that there was another path out there for me. Obviously, this was a very stressful time, and I started feeling this build up with all of these changes that were coming in. And I had a very difficult time finding the motivation for my business. But during the spring of 2022, I got a scholarship for my entrepreneurship, and that did motivate me to a certain extent, but I still felt like, what am I doing? What is my purpose? What is my vision? I feel so disconnected. I feel so lost. Where is my life headed? How am I going to scale my business? There were so many thoughts in my head, and I felt like, this sounds super cliche, but I felt like I didn't know who I was. And because I didn't know who I was feeling very disconnected. So in March-ish, there was a build-up towards something. And I didn't know what it was. I just felt a build-up of energy. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Everything was very odd, and it felt energetically weird. And then on April 14th of 2022, normal day, I walked into work, I came home, I came back to my mom's, and my cousins were there, but I couldn't really deal with what was going on in the kitchen. So I went upstairs to my room, and I know this sounds extremely crazy, but my whole world shifted. I started feeling something that I had never felt before. It was like the part of me that was missing. I had seen that part of me. I had seen myself in the mirror for the first time, and it was extremely eerie because I was connecting with something that I had never ever felt before. It was me. It was the essence of who I was, but it was my first time truly connecting with it, and it sounds wild. But anyways, that's what happened. And that experience made me realize that everything I had known to be true was not true. And I knew that I had to make massive changes in my life. And I still can't believe it literally happened like this. It doesn't make any logical sense, and I've tried to explain it to myself logically. I've tried to explore it in a more logical way, but I just go into rabbit holes trying to do that. So I'm honoring my experience because I know that it has taken me to where I am today. Anyways, so that was a big aha moment for me. And it was really scary because I just knew that my whole life was going to change, and I knew that the person that I was seeing was not the person that I thought I was. But I thought that overnight I had turned into this new person, and that it was this beautiful gift from the universe, and that I just had to, change some things in my life, and that everything would be fine after that. So that was my perception of everything that was going on. So I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, it's time. I need to buy a car. I needed a new car, but I was like, I need to start becoming independent. I need to live the life I want to live, because if I'm in this limbo state, I'm never going to push myself to do all the things that I need to do. I signed up to rent an apartment just next to the factory. And this made no sense because, keep in mind, I had no income and the business wasn't making enough money for me to have an income. But I just signed the contract because I was like, I'm gonna make this happen. I don't know how, but I'm gonna make it happen. So, my whole plan had changed. I was supposed to move in with my ex-boyfriend, but I had given all of that up. Now I was suddenly deciding that I was gonna be self-employed, even though Vegan Delights wasn't making enough money. We had to close over summer because we didn't have air conditioning, so we couldn't really produce anything that summer. And I was like, yeah, this is the path that I want to walk. And what's interesting is that I walked into my accountant's office one day and we sat down and we were going through the numbers. And this is so weird, but we were going through the numbers and he was like, hey, I know a guy who might be interested in investing in your business. And I was like, what? I had felt a lot of resistance towards any investors because I felt like I had this very strong vision that I had been disconnected from for a while, but I still had the vision, and I wanted to have an ethical business that was built on love and compassion. And I didn't want someone to come in and take that away from me. I wanted someone that was aligned with my vision. And I was like, with the size of my business and what's going on, how likely is it that I'm gonna find someone like that? Anyways, he was like, yeah, I have a guy and he might be interested in investing. Let's get some documents together and send them to him and see what he says. I was like, okay, we can do that. So we got a business plan together, some slides, and I sent them to him, and he was like, okay, I would like to meet you at the factory. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, we can meet. And I was really nervous because I did not feel like my confidence level was at rock bottom. During that time, I really did feel like an imposter, but I also knew deep inside that I had something going for me because I had Vegan Delights. I knew my chocolate wasn't awful because during the year that I had had the factory, I'd realized that the feedback we were getting from customers was pretty amazing. So I sat down and I met Niklas at the factory, and we had our first meeting, and he told me that he would get back to me. The truth is, the second I walked into the factory and met him, my gut feeling was like, yes, this is gonna work out. And I did not expect to have that feeling, but I just felt it so strongly. But obviously in my head, I was telling myself that he will never ever want to invest in my business. So this was a nice meeting, but he's gonna come back and he's gonna say no. So I left. I went on a road trip with my friend after that, and I suddenly got an email from him and he was like, let's do this. And I was like, what? Okay. But he was gonna invest, and so he actually said that I needed to have an income starting September. But I was moving into my new apartment in June. So I was really happy about everything that was happening with Vegan Delights, and I was like, now we have the capital to be able to take this business to a new level, but I have to sort my summer out. So I did. I got like 50 different jobs. No, but I got a lot of different jobs and I was working them. I moved into my new apartment in June. Super chaotic. And then I went on a lot of road trips with my friend during that summer and I worked. So that's basically all I did. Worked, but I was also going through a massive healing journey. I remember, this may sound weird to some of you, but I was just sitting in my bed crying, and then going into these moments of extreme bliss. You know, walking out into nature and being like, oh my god, look at the trees, they're so beautiful. And it was so beautiful, and then I would come home and be triggered and I was like, oh, I have to process this. So it was a really intense summer, but I made it work and I moved into my new apartment and it was pretty cool, and I had a roommate and everything was working out. And then in September, we got Vegan Delights started with the new funding, and my sister started working with me. And things were quite stable, but I felt something. I don't know what I felt, but I felt weird, okay? I felt really weird about it. And I felt like I had been given all these gifts from the universe, and when I look back at it now, I wasn't ready for the gifts that I had been given. And I thought that there were just these beautiful gifts that I got to keep. And I was in that mentality of like, okay, everything is fine now. I don't have to do more work. Maybe I did all the work that I needed to do, and now I'm in this place where everything is just gonna blossom. But in September, I started feeling weird. And I just told myself, like, let go of that feeling, keep going. And again, the business was moving in the right direction. It was growing, but it was growing very slowly. In November, everything, it felt as though everything was taken away from me. My roommate moved. I had to pay full rent myself. I crashed internally, but I didn't want to deal with what I was feeling. So I didn't feel like I was ready to deal with all the darkness that was slowly coming up. So I decided to put it in a box and close the lid and just try to move on from it, because I still had, you know, a band-aid on everything. And I felt like if I just keep going like this, I'll make it work. And I was in this very feminine energy. When I speak about feminine and masculine, I talk about energies. It's not gender related, but I was in this very feminine energy and I hadn't really explored my masculine energy. So I had only explored because I think that's what I was shown. In April, I was connecting with that part of me, which was extremely beautiful, but I wasn't really in a mode where I was productive and I wasn't facing my darkness at all. And so time went by, and during the summer of 2022, when everything went like boom and I was receiving all these gifts, I actually got a fellowship through the US State Department. It's called the White Tilly Fellowship. And the plan was that I could go to the US for 5 weeks to learn more about leadership and entrepreneurship. And it was granted to around 50 entrepreneurs from different countries across the Atlantic. One from Sweden, that was me. And it was really exciting. Again, one of those gifts that I was like, wow, the universe is just giving me all these gifts. But, you know, feels kind of unstable, but I'm being handed the gifts. I'm gonna accept them. So I just let time pass. And during the spring, it was in April again. I hadn't thought of that. But it was in April 4th this time. I went to the US and the fellowship started in Chicago. Then we were placed in hubs. I was in Denver. And then we ended things with a closing conference in Washington, D.C. I can get into that fellowship in a different episode. I'll just tell you briefly what happened. It was a very strange experience to be taken away from your business in that way. I was leaving my factory, I was leaving my staff. My sister was covering for me during that time, and I just felt like, okay, who am I? Like, what is this? I'm here without my business. This feels weird. Hi, Fino. Sorry. And it was weird, but getting that distance from Vegan Delights helped settle some of the things within me. And the experience was extremely beautiful because I was connecting with other like-minded people. You know, the experience, the journey of an entrepreneur is very isolated, and it's hard to connect with people who understand what it is that you're going through, because most people don't know what it's like to run your own business and have to see all the problems, issues, everything that's going wrong with it, and the pressure that results in. So I was connecting with like-minded people, and I was like, okay, these people, like, they get it. They really get it. And that was super cool. But we also got to like pitch about our businesses, talk about them, and that lit a fire inside of me, because I started connecting with my vision again, with my purpose. I started seeing this plan of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to contribute with. I think that was the most important thing for me. What was it that I wanted to contribute with to the world? And during the White to Leave Fellowship, I really started connecting with that. So I made an action plan. And then I came home, and it was summer again, and we couldn't produce because it was too hot. So I still can't believe we did this, but you know, we barely had any orders during summer, so it was fine. But we had to close the factory again, which meant that we had no money left. And that was extremely stressful. So instead of dealing with the stress of that, I came home and went on a lot of road trips with my friend. I also traveled to Italy, stayed in Italy for 3 weeks, visited my sister in Monaco as well, which was quite fun. And then I went to Finland to visit my uncle, and my grandma was there, and my dad was also there. And that was actually quite essential for my healing. My parents got divorced when I was really young, and this was the first time that I had met my dad after having the experience of April 14th, where I was getting to know myself on a different level. So that was beautiful. That whole summer was extremely beautiful. I felt so aligned with my feminine energy. I felt like I was healing. Like, I felt like I was really resting. And I think even though like I wasn't in this, you know, productive energy, I was in an energy that I needed to be in, because I think I needed to do a lot of deep emotional healing, and I don't think I would have been able to do that if I would have been doing things all the time. And, you know, I was working, I just wasn't in that state that I've been in this past year. It's a different state when you're just, yeah. Anyways, during that year, like 2023, summer was awful. The year had been really bad. We hadn't made enough money. I had been in the US. Sales were so low, and I didn't really know if Vegan Delights was going to survive. So I was trying to enjoy my summer, because things were now, instead of us growing like slowly, we were moving in the opposite direction. And I had never been, like, I could not have foreseen that. And it was really awful, and I felt so horrible because of it. Then I felt something major coming in August. My life honestly had started feeling like a movie, because I was tapping into I was intuitively tapping into things. And before April 14th, 2022, I had not been able to do it. But now I had gotten to know myself to such a deep extent that I could feel when something needed to come out. I knew what my intuition was, and I knew I was listening to my intuition. I think that was the difference. I think that before I wasn't really listening to my intuition. I wasn't tapping into it. Anyways, I woke up in August and I felt this weird feeling. I walked into work, and that was the first day that I had walked into work after summer. I think it was like August 11th or something. And I walked into work ready to do everything, but my head of production wasn't there. There were some issues regarding that I'm not gonna go into, but he wasn't there and I couldn't reach him, and I was freaking out. It was getting me, I was like, has something happened? Has he died? Like, what is going on? And I just felt chaos. Chaos, I felt darkness. I felt everything that I had been trying to put inside that box come up at once. And I had never felt that way before. And it wasn't good. It was a full-blown dark night of the soul. And I didn't even know what a dark night of the soul was until I experienced that. It was like everything was dark. Everything. I could not see in anything. Every single issue that I had ever had, all of my beliefs about myself, all my horrible beliefs about myself, limiting beliefs about myself, were just coming out. Everything, all the insecurities, everything were just like emphasized to an extent that was awful. It was awful. I would come home and I would just cry. And at the same time, my physical world was shifting in a way that was so chaotic and so difficult. My head of production didn't come back, and I had to become the head of production. And during this time, my sister also quit. So she was head of sales, but she couldn't continue working with us, and we decided it wasn't working out. Like, I love my sister, but it wasn't working out between us as colleagues. So she quit. My head of production quit. Homeless people broke into the factory, and they were living in the factory building. And everything, like, it wasn't one or two things, like everything I touched was set on fire. It was bad, and I was freaking out, but this was pushing me into, I had been in this like comfortable, flowy energy, and this was pushing me. Like, I felt like I had no choice. I was like, if I don't do everything now, if I don't step up and take care of everything that is going on, I will lose everything. And that wasn't an option, because I knew the pain of losing it would be so much greater than the pain that I was going through at that time. I also felt like, okay, I'm at rock bottom. How much worse can it get? So that was like the mentality that I was in. I was just walking around, everyone who would meet me, I was horrible to deal with during that time. I didn't even want to talk to anyone because of what I was going through. But it was just like also motivating me, because I was like, I've hit rock bottom. I've never been at rock bottom in this way before in my life. But now I'm here. How much worse can it get? And it was like motivating me, because I was like, I have nothing to lose, whatever. I'll just do it. And I really had nothing to lose. I was living alone. I was renting an apartment. I had my dog Fino. I have my dog Fino. But yeah, that was it. I was like, I'll just move back to my mom's place. It's not like I'll just do that if everything fails. So I went full force into this. And at the same time, I started, because what I was feeling was so awful that I was like, I need to start befriending this. It was shadow work. I was like, this darkness is not external. It's my own darkness that exists here. All of these feelings, all of these insecurities, all of everything, it's me. It's a part of me. And I've just been I haven't faced that part of me because it's been uncomfortable, but it's always been there. And so I might as well get to know it. And as I started to get to know it, I also learned how to deal with it, because it wasn't that bad. I started integrating it because it was a part of me, right? Then so much weird stuff happened during that fall. Literally everything was so messed up. Like, there were coincidences, meetings, encounters. It was me being away all the time. I was on doing fairs, expos, markets all over Scandinavia. I was away constantly. Pressure was immense. And we were selling really well. We were setting new records every month. And I was like, why is that happening now? You know, because I was like, everything literally feels like shit. I was like, everything feels like it's falling apart. And then, you know, my business is like moving in the right direction. And I was like, okay. And it's just me. I have nobody helping me. Obviously, Niklas was there. He was really supporting me through this. And it's very important to have someone who supports you. Have one person who supports you. It makes a big difference. But I was trying to avoid him. I wasn't speaking to him because I was like, with everything that is happening in my life, like, nobody should get dragged into this. Everything was moving in the right direction. I got invited to do this like workshop for young girls in Azerbaijan, and I was like, this is so aligned with my vision, my purpose, the action plan that I wrote during my fellowship in the US. And I was like, it's so weird, but it was so intense that I was just doing it. I was just being pulled through all of it. And I was hospitalized twice during that fall because I was so sick. Like, my body could not deal with everything that was going on. So I was actually like hospitalized. I went to the ER because I was so sick and they couldn't find out what was wrong with me. I was just like throwing up. Sorry for, you know, being this graphic, but I was throwing up constantly. I couldn't stop. It was really weird. I'm telling you, that time was weird energetically. And then Christmas came, and I remember leaving the factory and I was like, I'm out. I am out. And I went home and I sat down on my sofa and I was like, what was that? What was that? Like, made no sense. And I was like, okay, now I have some time off. So I started meditating. I was journaling a lot because I, you know, knew that I had to get everything down because I was like, what's going on? And then I had another moment that was probably the coolest moment that I've had in this journey, where I just felt so empowered. I was like, I literally just took myself out of the situation that I was in. With everything that was happening around me, I still pushed. I pushed through, and I'm still here, and I haven't lost my life's work, my baby, Vegan Delights. It's still here, and it's actually doing so much better. That just gave me a whole new view. It made me view myself in a way that I had never viewed myself before, because I felt competent, I felt capable, and it was really cool. And I also felt that, you know, a lot of the darkness that I had seen had been integrated so well that I was using it in a positive way. And so I felt like another fire was lit inside of me, and this one was extremely productive. It was like a full force, again, I don't mean gender, but it was a full force masculine energy that was like, okay, now you need to go get what you want. So when it's the yin and yang energies, but basically it doesn't have anything to do with women or men. But this came into me and I was like, okay, let's go. I need to sit down and write down my goals. And I got super motivated to start writing down goals, like things that I had always been told or that I had always told myself I would never be able to do. And running was one of those things. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna run. I'm gonna run 10 kilometers by the end of this year. Because I've told myself I'm not good at running. I've told myself I don't like running. So I need to do it. And then I had a bunch of other goals for my business, for myself, personal development. And I was like, these are my goals, and I had them. It was the first time that I'd written my goals down. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. And in March, I had reached all of those goals. I ran my first 10K in March. It was moving so quickly. And this was a sense of self-trust was growing within me. Because I was like, wait a second, I did this. Like, how is it even possible? Why am I doing all these things that I've told myself I can't do. And the business was really moving in the right direction. It was moving slowly, but it was still moving in the right direction. We were setting new records and everything felt really positive. And when summer came, I was like, I'm not gonna take time off. I didn't feel like I needed to take time off because I was aligning with something that was so great, and I was seeing the value in all these gifts. When they had been handed to me, I hadn't realized what they were worth. But when I was on the brink of losing them, I really understood what they meant to me. And I really understood that I had been blessed. I was working with something that I loved, that I had created with my own two hands, and I wasn't gonna lose that. So all these creative ideas kept coming up, and we decided to install a cooling system in the factory. So we produced all summer, and sales were actually quite good during summer, which was surprising. And then fall came, and I was like, are we gonna have another tower moment? But that didn't happen. I had worked all summer, and I was so happy to be working because I felt like I had the power to create substantial change. And I felt like a bulldozer. I was just like bulldozing through life. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it felt good. But then fall came, and I started getting a bit worried, and I started, spiraling a bit, but I was still not. I've never gone into the darkness that I experienced in the fall of 2023 again. And I'm really happy about it. I hope it doesn't happen again. I don't think it will, because I feel like I've integrated that into myself. Now I have bad days, bad periods, but it's never like that. Anyways, fall came, and I woke up one day, and I knew nothing about TikTok. I had a friend send me a TikTok, and she was like, you're going viral on TikTok. I was like, what? And that was the turning point for Vegan Delights. We had gone viral on TikTok, and sales were off the charts. And I couldn't really understand that it was happening, but I felt so ready for it. I was like, this is what I've been working towards, and now for the first time, I'm ready for it. I'm not just receiving these gifts from the universe, I'm ready for the gifts. And I've worked hard enough for them, and I know what it takes to be able to keep them. And so I started working harder, but because I was scared. I was scared. I was still scared that I was gonna lose it all, because I had lost so much. I had lost friends, I had lost so much within the company. I was so scared it was gonna be taken away from me. But I was working harder, and I was in this energy where I felt really open. I wasn't blocked anymore. I had zero creative blocks. I was creating so much, so many beautiful things, and I was flowing. I felt like I had felt in September of, sorry, I'm getting slightly emotional, but in September of 2024, I felt like I had felt in April 14th of 2022, but it just wasn't a shock. It was like a new chapter in my life. The difficult times were over, and it felt so beautiful. I felt all the walls were just like crumbling down, and I was flying. And it wasn't this unstable flight where I knew that I was gonna crash. It was stable. I wasn't going to crash. I just felt like I had stepped into my power. I had truly stepped into my power. I had balanced the yin and yang energies. I had balanced the masculine and feminine energies within myself. I was in union with myself. And by being in union with myself, I was creating things that were just beautiful. And so that was the fall of 2024. We set records I never thought could happen, and we have so many new customers. I'm so grateful. We went super viral on Instagram and on TikTok, and I'm just so grateful for all of it. And I still wake up, like this Christmas, I've just been trying to understand it all and why it's happening, and it's hard for me to do that, because I still wake up some days and I'm scared of losing everything. I'm like, do I really deserve all of this? And I don't know what's gonna happen. I just know that within myself, I have the power to create what I want to create in my life. And with that being said, we're by no means where we need to be. We still have a long way to go with Vegan Delights, and we still have costs that are very high for the company, and we still need to grow. We're not big enough yet, but I feel like I have the power within myself to do that. And I think that finding that stability and that inner union truly is a game changer. And I just want to say this because I think it's quite important. But during my darkest of times, I never thought that this existed within me. It was a journey. I got to see it in April of 2022, and it took two and a half years to be it. It was a full-on journey, and I had to face things that were not pretty at all. But I did it, and I'm here today, and I'm so grateful for everyone, and I'm really happy that so many of you are listening. I did not expect that. I was like, I'm gonna have one person listening to my podcast, and that's gonna be my mom or something. But I'm really happy about that. So that was that. That was the day everything changed. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm really sharing things with you that are not easy to share, but that I feel compelled to share. And I think that in the next episode, I'm gonna tell you how I learned to fly, the actual changes that I made in my life, and how they had an impact on me creating this change. I'm gonna deep dive into that, my daily routine, how I live my life, things that I've had to give up. And I hope that you will be with me for that episode. Thank you so much, and see you soon.